Right. So I just want to start by thanking everyone for coming. It's really appreciate from you taking your time out from the community to come in and talk to us. But before we get started, I just want to start by getting everyone to sort of introduce themselves.
Sure.
So,
My name is Donnovan Simon. I'm the president for the Jamaican Canadian Association, Alberta, based in Calgary. I am born and raised in Jamaica, but I've lived in Canada for the last 20 years.
So my name is Ariet. I work for a group called ROS as One, abbreviated for Republic of South Sudan as One. Our main focus as a group is to build the bridge between the community and South Sudanese youth and just kind of get a feel of what they feel as youth, because we believe it starts from the beginning, the homes, and all that such.
Hi, I'm Sunday James. I'm also from the same group, ROS as One. Our focus is primarily the youth, bridging cultural gaps, because we believe in establishing identity. It's really important, and then focusing on different youth problems that have been kind of plaguing the community and working our way slowly through those.
Hi everyone, my name is Israel Fayisa, originally from Ethiopia. I immigrated to Canada as a skilled worker 10 years ago. And currently I'm a settlement counselor at Center for Newcomers. I'm Canadian.
great. Thank you. So I'm just going to get basically right in there and just ask you personally, as a Black young person or an adult, how has your journey been in Canada? Have you ever come across any sort of systemic barriers or racism that you've personally faced in Canada?
So, of course, I feel that I have been targeted for being Black, and not only Black, but a Black woman, and not only that, also being South Sudanese. I feel our community is very targeted, even within the Black community. We're seen as less than, and these type of things, and these things being said to you when you're very young, I feel kind of shape the way you grow up and how you perceive things. And I feel like even with like being in school, or just even people that are supposed to help you, like teachers, and then all that, they've always looked at me like I was less than. And it's been hard for me. It's been hard for me to see myself like the other kids. I've always thought that I was less than, like a white woman, a white kid. I feel dumb, because these are things that they pressure upon you. Like when I went into high school, they just assumed I was to be in the lower classes before they got to know me or even looked at my grades. Or things like if me and all my friends were to get in trouble, I just happened to be the only Sudanese child or the only Black child, and I would always get all the blame.
Yeah, I agree with Ariet. We have very similar experiences growing up, both as Southern Sudanese females in Calgary. It is true, there is a lot of demonizing from all sides. You have the Black community, who's supposed to be your community, kind of looking upon you like you're not even at the same level. Like a lot of communities will hear I'm South Sudanese and have all their pre-assumed notions just at the forefront and not even know who I am. Just, she's a Sudanese girl, this means she's this, and this, and I'm done for, you know what I mean? I've been decided. So that's the main struggle, I feel, having people just assume who you are and not take you for anything that's actually tangible of who you are,
I need to recognize that that's the reason why we originally set up this conference last year, because we actually noticed the disproportionate representation of Black youth, especially South Sudanese, in the justice system, like police involvement, stuff like that. So we had to, and I personally experienced a racist, biased attitude from the police officers because I was with one of them. So yeah, so I can definitely feel what you're saying. So, but thanks for sharing.
So my experience is a little bit different because I didn't go to high school here. What I'll say first is there were a number of things that I experienced that, not understanding racism in my initial years in Calgary, I just took for granted. It's on reflection that I'm realizing that there were a lot of, in some cases subtle, some cases very direct racist actions and behaviors towards me. I was just looking to get ahead and to move forward. And I made assumptions about equality that in reflection I realized were a little false. So for example, I remember applying for a particular job and I was told that I didn't qualify. It didn't make any sense to me at the time, but I just moved on because that's what my mentality was. In reflection, I think of a number of other actions in that particular circumstance that no, I would attribute to racism. I mean, comments made, behaviors from managers and others. So the short answer is yes, I have experienced it. How I saw it at that particular time may have allowed me to not respond to it the way I would today. There is no question in our community, though, and I speak, for the Jamaican and Caribbean community, that it's been a long struggle for years, especially since people from the Caribbean have been in Canada and Calgary from way back in the 60s coming through. And you listen to some of the stories of places that people couldn't go, bars that they couldn't go in, restaurants that they couldn't go to, jobs that they couldn't get. And while I'll say that in some cases it has improved as people have become, more financially independent and other things, there is still some very core elements that exist and affect our community.
I share a lot with Donnovan. I'm not raised here. I lived most of my life back in Ethiopia. When I immigrated here, upon arrival, I didn't think of, or I didn't assume there is any racism going on in Canada. So you just go out and explore, and it takes you a while to find out what's going on. And how you know that is partly sharing your experience with people. When you hear similar stories, you start to question like, oh, is that what happened to me? So it took me a while to figure out how racism works, what kind of package it comes in. So my experience is related to me coming as a skilled worker, as a professional, and upon arrival, nobody giving me the chance, even to entry-level job. It's not just myself. I came with my wife, who is also a professional. So to put things in a nutshell for you, we were not welcomed by the employers to work as professionals in Canada. And we are forced to go back to school and learn A, B, C, D again. That's what we did. And this is a very troubling experience. It's not something simple. When you come as a high school student, when you come as a junior school student, yes, challenges are there, but you have a long way ahead of you to fix things. When you come as a 40 years old adult, when you come as 35 years old adult, and all your qualifications are multiplied by 0, it's really troubling.
They're very highly educated and got a lot of experience because they haven't got the Canadian experience, or because it's assumed that, like I've heard different examples, that if you have accents, it's very much used against you, like we don't understand you or things like that. That gets very frustrating, and assume that, like you said, Ariet and Sunday, that you are less than, or you're not educated, or you're not, and it's really worrying. What are the concerns that you're finding within your own communities? Like, what are the struggles that you find that they're facing?
Well, I think one of the first things is, I'm going to go on the the side of employment. Especially as economies go through their cycles. I remember when the oil patch bust occurred, in the last couple of years, I've got a couple of complaints about who gets laid off first and who gets targeted for, the reduction of hours. And some members of the community, felt that they were targeted. Now, I don't have anything to corroborate it, but if you hear the same thing over and over again, there may be something there. I think the other thing that I've seen in the community is a question of perception from the establishment. Whether it's the police. I've heard numerous stories about how the police are perceived, and even though I'm sure the CPS would talk about the different programs they have. When I talk to a mom who says, I won't let my 16-year-old drive my Lexus because I'm scared of how that will look and what is likely to happen, it means that there are some systemic things in not just the psyche, but in the practices that have occurred over the years that force people to think that way, right? I think the last thing, and I think Ariet brought this up to, is the question of how the different Black communities relate to each other, right? And how that is perceived by the different establishments, whether or not it is seen as a threat, whether or not it's seen as fragmented, and how that then lends itself to the programs that are in place to support a particular initiative, a particular activity, a particular community, right? So those are things I hear from my community as it relates to, that perception around race and color, especially in Caldo. I can speak for the Caribbean community, for example, and the Caribbean community ethnocultural associations. I'm going to say we work very well together, right? And we've done that over the years in different ways. What I don't think is as solid is the coordination and collaboration between the Black communities, right? So if I were to look at what's happening, let's say with the South Sudanese or the Nigerian or the Ghanaian, it is fragmented, and the question in my mind has been: has there been enough common purpose? Has there been enough common issues to bring these groups together in order to create the synergies that's needed? I think in recent times with Black Lives Matter, I think more of those questions are being asked and more of those suggestions are coming to the fore. But in the 20 years that I've been here, I think it's been fragmented.
I definitely agree with Donnovan with what he was saying about the fragmented community, like separation between like different Black groups. I feel with the common purpose thing, it might now start to become actualized because all these groups have lived here for a while and we've established like a home or a Black community in Calgary. There's a presence of a Black community in Calgary. So these issues are going to start blending. You know what I mean? We're all going to start feeling the same attacks of the construct. And I think at that point we're going to have to start working together. But yeah, it's been fragmented. There's not a lot of communication between communities. And I think, at least for the Southern Sudanese community, the issues are so deep. They're so large and they're so consuming that it's hard to even focus on other and the bigger picture. Primarily, we have a lot of issues with the judicial system, like you said, and though those are rooted at home, Ross has done a lot of work to try and uncover where these issues spread, and we're finding environment obviously has a lot to play with it, and the trauma and no opportunity of healing leads to this culture where crime is so popular.
So I feel like a really big thing that has to tie into our South Sudanese community that I find really damaging is that with a lot of our youth, they're not only trained by society, not around them, but also with the people in their own community. I feel like what we have that's happening right now, we have older South Sudanese people who have been youths. We have like 30-year-old, 28-year-olds teaching our young youth to do what they have done, right? So they're teaching them. I'm not talking about like going to school. I'm talking about like street. They're teaching them street things. So I feel like what I've heard always growing up in South Sudanese, especially with the boys, it's always been told that you're either a basketball player or you're a dope boy, right? I've always heard that my whole life. So when these boys let these things get to their heads, it's just boys are learning from boys, and it's just all continuing down generations upon generations. And I feel like that's really affecting us, right? And not only with that, with our female as well, we're told that you're just supposed to be a baby mama, you're not supposed to go to school, you're not supposed to go to work, and that's also threatening us because us younger girls are learning from the older girls. And it's just, I feel like it's hard to break the cycle because what you learn at home is that, okay, this is what they say about us, so let's do this. But when you go out there to look for something different, they're told, no, you're South Sudanese, this is what you're supposed to be doing. Or you're Black, you're not supposed to be nowhere near us. I feel like that's very damaging. And I've spoke to a lot of youths, like even younger than me in their preteen years, and they all have this perception, and it's crazy to me. Like I've even had like a 16-year-old boy tell me that he doesn't need to work the 9 to 5 because he's meant to be on the streets.
At home, not only are they seeing that as the normal things that they should carry on to do, but even those that strive to come out of that, they're getting the society pushing them, saying that, no, yeah, you know, you're not welcomed here, this is your limitation. Because I agree, I've worked with a lot of South Sudanese youth that teachers have told me, no, he should go into basketball and stuff like that because he's tall and he's athletic. You know, I've had a lot of young adults talk about how those young people are threatening. And not that he's done anything threatening, it's just that he's huge. And he may not have the smiliest face on, but that doesn't make him a threat. So it's just the biases that I've seen. And let's keep it real. And I'm here to keep it real, even within ourselves. You spoke on that. And it's about who is better than who, and it's down to complexion, it's down to a lot of entwined things that we still carry as even community people that we need to get rid of or question, reflect on ourselves. You know, what has caused that, you know, fragmentation that you lot are talking about? What have caused us to now take on the perception that we're trying to battle as a Black population?
The issue of fragmentation that's discussed by Donnovan and the others with my community, I feel like it's more than fragmentation. The people, I came from an ethnic group known as Oromo from Ethiopia. And most of them left Ethiopia because of persecution, political persecution. They arrive here, live here for years and years, and they still find themselves in persecution. Contradiction that ethnic groups have back home is directly transported to Canada, and the people are against each other. The ethnic groups that come from Ethiopia, I say it's exceptionally that people get along each other. They are fighting to the extent of physical fighting, to the extent of firing each other from employment, to the extent of robocalling and sending threatening messages. These are the things we are experiencing these days. And sometimes when I think of Black Lives Matter, I feel like, are these people mature enough to talk about Black Lives Matter? We're lost. We are against each other. We are not yet at the level of claiming a ground at Black people. We're torn apart. And it's really frustrating and concerning to me. The people I know who left Ethiopia, went through Sudan or Kenya or South Africa, arrived in Canada, and again fighting with the same people they used to fight back home, is like, we are nowhere. We are still there. We didn't move. And sometimes I really feel ashamed talking about Black Lives Matter sitting among these kind of fragmented people. Because when you talk about Black Lives Matter, we are claiming something as Black people. Now, if we break this into pieces where we fight each other, we are at each other than looking at the real enemy, it's shameful to talk about big ideas. We are really reduced to the dust level, and I'm so sad talking about like these guys. I'm sorry about it.
No, I mean, like I said, everyone, we're here to talk the truth. And you said a few things. You said, number one, the lack of unity amongst us Black people is evident. You said also that the mindset is everything. We can move from country to country, but if our mindset's the same, things are going to stay the same. And so as we're talking, the thing is why I like bringing community and people that are honest about the community and the issues is as basically what we're saying is as we're pointing fingers, as four pointing back at us, what are we doing as a community to help our people? What are we doing to make things better for ourselves, to make change? And that's what I want to go into with all of you. Like, Donnovan, what are you doing as a Jamaican association to help your community?
I don't think there's a perfect recipe, a perfect solution to these issues. What I've said, in my community is that the issues of racism and unity, have been around for as long as our community has been around, and it's possibly going to be around for another 1,000,000 years, right? I don't think we get to that perfection. From a community perspective and, our association, one of the things we've initiated over the last couple of years are efforts at bringing groups together, right? So, for example, I mentioned earlier that the Caribbean associations, now we have a forum where bi-monthly the associations, the leaders meet, look at issues that we can collaborate on, look at initiatives that we can do together to create a united front that the other members of the community can see. Because there's a lot of legacy of bad blood and issues that have been around for 20, 30, 40 years that this crop of leaders are not necessarily party to or interested in, right? But it's hard to wipe away that history, right? And that legacy of, well, these two never get along and that group didn't get along. When we're saying, hey, we actually get along, right? So we have planned initiatives, right? So we've done Black History Month together as a collective. We've done a youth summit as a collective. We have a Caribbean Sports Day as a collective, which 20 years ago might never have happened. But we cannot get stuck or should not be stuck on that legacy. I think we have to move forward and accept. The other thing that we've done is open ourselves up to conversation. So, for example, I do a little program on Facebook on Friday nights. We call it What to Go On, where we publicly come out and discuss issues that affect our community so that we can be more visible and that we can touch on some of these hot button topics that typically stay in the background and people don't hear or people don't become a part of. Because I think that's a big part of our solution to addressing these social issues. We have to start some of these uncomfortable conversations.
Like I said, even with the audience, sometimes you have to feel comfortable being uncomfortable because it's not all the time you're going to hear things that it might affect you, but it's truth that people are speaking that you should allow a space for them to speak it and you actually hear it. So I'm hoping that this will bring about that.
A big thing that we mentioned, like one of Ross's main platforms, is actually bringing about the importance of identity and knowing who you are. Because a lot of that got lost when we came here. We came here as refugees. Most South Sudanese people here are refugees. Our parents have been through the worst, not to discredit any other experience, but they came fleeing a country of war. There's a whole bunch of trauma and unpacked damage that's coming out in every way, and our job is to go back and really fix that, it can be extraneous, but coming as that, we are always focusing on the negativities of that. I always looked at my parents younger, why aren't you guys living in a house like them? How come the Nigerians, look at them, they're doing so well financially, look at us, why are we still in government housing, and why are all my cousins just like me, why aren't we doing good? And they had to, my dad looked at me one time and said, listen, you know how we came here, right? We didn't come here fresh. We came here with nothing in our pockets, nothing in our, no vocabulary, English, what is that? I'm not even used to seeing other people from different tribes, let alone whole white people, Asians, whatever it is, So establishing the identity and getting rid of the negativity that we all associate with being South Sudanese is essential for progressing in our community. And then we also have to attack the real issues that are coming out right now. I keep bringing this up with the judicial system because it rings so hard in our community. The crime rate is it's kind of insane, you know, how we're making up the second group, I think, statistically, second highest population in the prison system in Calgary. And we've only been here for 20 years.
I feel that what made me want to join Ross in the first place is because I've noticed a serious barrier within the South Sudanese community. There's serious tribalism going on. Like, we're South Sudanese people, but then there's types of South Sudanese people that we shouldn't even be hanging around. Like, I've always been told by like aunties, parents, oh, you shouldn't hang out with those type of South Sudanese people. Like, those Nuers are bad, or those Dinkas are bad, but we're all at the end of the day one group. So what really made me want to join Ross is I found the diversity in the executives, how they thought it was kind of cool to have the members of the Ross be all different tribes, right? So I found that pretty cool to reach out to the South Sudanese youth, because now it's not just like we have a Nuer group over here, we have a Nuer group over here, or whatever it may be. Now it's like we're coming as one, and we want you guys to come as one so we can help you. So I feel like in saying that, the best way to find out what's really going on, we've had some conferences to just talk to the youth, and we've had like all age groups, like starting from I think junior high all the way to elders, just to hear what they had to say. Any topics regarding Black, South Sudanese people, even our children, the way that they raise their children, and how us kids, because a lot of times we can't understand how our parents raise us when we see what else is going on there. To what Sunday was saying, why did I not have a big house as well, right? So I feel like in saying that, the only way we're all gonna understand each other is if we have those conversations rather than going off of assuming and breaking apart. Like, I feel like we just have to all come as one to do so.
The conference has kind of like helped us establish our identity a bit, hearing the different voices. And we had some tournaments as well to kind of give people other options to see themselves as not just a basketball player or a coach.
I've been here in Canada for 10 years now, the whole time in Calgary. And I have been actively involving in the community since maybe 2014, 15. During those times I involved in, I tried to figure out common grounds, like people can mobilize together for justice. Justice does not have color. Justice does not have ethnicity. Justice does not have anything to be attached to somebody. Justice is something we all aspire for. The same with human rights. There are so many things that we share together. I try to mobilize people around those issues despite their differences, despite their maybe sometimes animosities. People can stand together and fight for justice. I tried, and I really scored some kind of progress, especially in 2015-16. Later on, I decided to go to school, and I've been in a school. I'm a fresh graduate from University of Calgary. I don't know what to go back and do soon. But I believe, like Donnovan said, you can just mold your own way of doing things. You can create your own, you can design your own program where you can pull people together. If not by mass, start with 2-3 people. Start with 5 people and try to build some kind of unshakable ground that will inspire others and people join you. So with the previous experience, I believe my success was related to a common enemy the people used to fight. The regime in Ethiopia, the repressive regime in Ethiopia, everyone was against it, and I used that to mobilize people. And then, since 2018 or so, things start to change. The political power start to tilt toward one side than the other, and the people are against each other again. One more time, I'm seeing animosity now. And I'm always thinking about what should I do? Where can I build the bridge? Where can I create some common ground for these people and mobilize them together? I'm always dreaming about this.
I guess that's going to be an ongoing thing. I guess we, as the community evolves and issues come up, we're going to have to continue to think of ways we can bridge those issues or at least make things better. But just taking in mind the audience that we will be talking to, which will be the justice system, police, CFS, Children and Family Services, have been I've seen a lot of damage the intervention has done on families and school systems. Schools are a big one. Why do you think the Shades of Africa conference is important, and what do you hope for them to get out of it?
The biggest thing is the need for us to start and sustain a conversation geared towards solutions. So I think that's the biggest thing. I think for a while there has been fragmentation, there has been work done in pockets, but it hasn't been brought together to create the level of synergy to attract the attention of these systems so that they respond in a positive way. They acknowledge the strength of the voices, right, in order to effect the change, to make the investments that are required. So I think a conference like this brings that together. I have learned so much already listening to Ariet on Sunday and Israel, which previously I wasn't aware of. And that starts to stimulate ideas on, so how do we find common purpose to address these systems? What I think we all have to acknowledge is that these systems are not trying to fix themselves. And therefore, there has to be external pressure, external intervention, external ideas and leadership in order for these changes to occur. So I think that's one of the big things that will come from a discussion and from a conference like this.
I think your approach with having genuine conversation that's real, kind of raw, like that's where the conversation should start, because that's how you create realistic progress, like progress that is tangible, that will actually affect the community tomorrow. So I think that's the biggest takeaway, honestly. Be uncomfortable, be okay with that, because that's where growth happens, right?
I also feel like it was very important for you to have this conference, and I like the fact that you grabbed people from other different backgrounds within the Black community, because like Donnovan said, he learned a lot from just us speaking, right? Because even though we're all one Black community, you don't know what's happening within everybody else's community. So I feel like that's very important, because in order to fix the problem, you have to know the problem, right? So that's pretty much what I got from it.
And hearing all you guys speak, I learned a lot.
So maybe for the systems to be more aware of or conscious about. Like, for instance, you say you've got a lot of issues, especially with the justice system. I find a lot of issues. But what is it on their side that they can maybe be more aware of when they're dealing with your community?
They should be, like, bias training is, I think, important. That you have to understand that you may subconsciously have a preconceived notion to this person, and you need to do the work to undo that. Also understand the community you're dealing with is coming out of a lot of damage. I know it's hard to be humane when you have to be in an objective field, but it just causes unnecessary harm. So I feel like comprehension of who you're dealing with and understanding that it's a damaged community, so that deals with a lot of trauma. And
one area I would like to bring to your attention is, there are a lot of things that would like to bring to the attention of the government, put pressure on them so that things change. But this can be successfully done when your argument, when your petition or your appeal or your pressure is based on research-based or evidence-based approach. If you come up with something concrete, especially figure matters, either a scientific research done regarding this concept. I would like to bring one thing to your attention that really attracted my attention when I did my practicum at University of Calgary. Children that come from Africa, most of them, they come from refugee camps, and they used to play in open field. They used to live in unstructured environment. And then all of a sudden, one day, the government of Canada sponsors them, or group of 5 sponsors them. Somehow, they find themselves in Canada. These kids, when they go to school the next morning, they cannot easily pick up the new environment. They will keep running around. They will keep jumping around. They try to act the way they used to act in Africa or in a given refugee camp. And usually these kids are labeled with a problem. And those problems, they have multiple names. They sometimes call it ADHD, the other time they call it learning disability, the other time they call it cognitive disability. There are so many names to be given to these kids. And I really expect and appreciate if I'm ready to take part in it, but I'm not in the field right now. I appreciate if somebody can do research and find out the what percentage of kids from Africa are being labeled as something I mentioned to you or things that I didn't mention, just because they came from a refugee camp, just because they came from a different culture where kids just run and play.
But one thing you did mention was culture, the understanding, the cultural misunderstanding that we find in Canada, and how it leads to labeling, placing people in boxes, and also hindering opportunities. But I'm just so thankful that we all came together, because these are important issues that we all need to talk about. And I'm glad you've opened the conversation. And I know for a fact that the people watching will have a lot of questions for you guys, because they have been trying, I guess, to reach out to the community. They just don't know how. They've been trying to work with the community. They just don't know how. So we're trying to bridge that gap so that they now know who they can connect with if they need more understanding. So I really, really want to thank you guys for putting in your time and also talking about the issues that the community face. And I really hope that as an audience, you take note and also learn from this group, because you've got a lot to say. So thank you guys for your time. And I really appreciate you coming out to talk.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure. Thank you as well.
Thank you.